Kid, mind if I take a swig of milk?
Knock yourself out.
Ulcers. All I do these days is drink fucking milk.
My heart bleeds.
Yeah, well, so do my ulcers, you punk bastard. What the goddamn hell's this about? There's easier ways to commit suicide, you know.
There's a dead man downstairs who found a harder way.
Louis? If you killed Louis, so help me.
Campagna's okay. He'll have a headache to make a hangover seem like Christmas, but he's okay. Fatso, too.
Then who?
A blonde guy. I don't know his name, but I've seen him around.
Have you?
Last time was at Bayfront Park when you sent him to help kill Cermak. Time before that, I saw him running down Randolph Street when Capone sent him to kill Jake Lingle. And tonight, you sent him to kill Nate Heller. But he didn't quite get the job done, did he?
You're wrong on that last count, kid. Dead wrong.
Then you sent that son of a bitch to Florida just to catch some sun?
I didn't say I didn't send him to Florida. What I do say is I didn't send him to kill you.
He pushed me off a skyride tower tonight, Frank. And you know I really don't like heights. I should be a twisted sack of bones and meat on a morgue tray about now, but somehow I'm not. I'm here. He's dead, and so are you. So are you, Nitty. I wish to Christ Lang had killed you that afternoon. I wish to Christ I didn't make them call an ambulance for you.
Heller, I didn't send him. I didn't even know the bastard was in town. He doesn't work for me.
He doesn't work for anybody now.
Something you aren't at all aware of. Why am I not already dead?
The silenced automatic in my hand raised to aim itself at his forehead.
You are dead. Fuck you.
Wait, just wait. Lower that goddamn thing, will you? Just hear me out. I didn't say he never done work for me. He's a guy Johnny Torrillo recommended to Al back on the Lingle deal. I used him later myself. Used him now and then on ticklish matters.
Oh, is that what I am? A ticklish matter?
Kid, I know how you feel. I know the kind of emotions you got running wild in you. I know all there is to know about revenge. You could ask 10% Tony if he wasn't in hell. But I didn't hire a contract on you. I swear by all that's holy.
And I'm supposed to believe that because of all the Catholic shit on the walls? Who sent him then, Frank?
I don't know the answer to that. Not for sure. But I can figure it out, and so can you, if you try.
I was getting confused, starting to wonder what the hell I was doing.
Although edited for television, tonight's thriller contains scenes of suspense and violence which may be unsuitable for young viewers. Parental discretion is advised.
Observations with Robert Meyer Burnett.
Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, your sommelier of sci-fi and cinema, your evangelist of the imagination, and the perhaps never to be defined existential Mr. Rogers. I don't even know what that means. One day I'll know what that means. Somebody came up with a good definition once, but I forget what it was. Robert Meyer Burnett, and I'm, of course, Robcasting you. You imagination connoisseurs, you members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community. This is Robservations, episode 1040. Before we get to the tasks at hand, I would like to read news that was in Deadline today. Normally I look at Nancy Tartaglione or one of our other friends, usually every week on, of course, Let's Get Physical Media. But today there's a story I wanted to share with all of you. Now, before I share this story, you know that Skydance, David Ellison Skydance, who David Ellison and Megan Ellison started Annapurna. David Ellison started Skydance. They are the children of Oracle founder Larry Ellison. You know, he gave him money. David Ellison's done very well for himself. Of course, Skydance has basically financed Paramount's entire slate for the last 20 years. They've financed the Mission Impossible movies. They've financed J.J. Abrams and Bad Robot Star Trek movies. They've done a lot. Skydance is big. They're buying Paramount. Well, here's a little story I'd like to tell. This comes from Justin Kroll. This was published today at 10:30 a.m. Matthew McConaughey reunites with True Detective creator Nick Pizzolatto on a feature adaptation of the Mike Hammer book series at Skydance. After collaborating on one of the great TV characters of the 21st century, Matthew McConaughey and True Detective creator Nick Pizzolatto have set their sights on another classic character to tackle. Sources tell Deadline that McConaughey is in talks to star in Skydance's feature film based on the iconic Mike Hammer from a script by Pizzolatto. Skydance acquired the rights to Mickey Spillane and Max Allan Collins' Mike Hammer franchise, with plans to develop and produce the best-selling book series into a feature film. Skydance's David Ellison, Dana Goldberg, and Don Granger Don, will produce, along with Entertainment 360's Guyman Cassidy. Benjamin Faulkner of Pendleton will also produce, as will Ken F. Levin will also produce. Max Allan Collins will executive produce, with Jane Spillane serving as co-producer. Karen Sage will oversee the project for Skydance. Mike Hammer is the protagonist of a series of hard-boiled detective novels starting with 1947's I, the Jury, becoming one of the most popular figures of the genre. With more than 250 million copies of Mike Hammer books sold globally, it often is recognized as the most popular American mystery thriller series of all time. Hammer is credited with inspiring numerous other characters, including Dirty Harry, Jack Reacher, and James Bond, who Ian Fleming famously referred to as the British answer to Mike Hammer. McConaughey and Pizzolatto have teased a reunion for years following the success of season of True Detective, the first season, which earned both of them Emmy nominations. There had even been talks of the two reuniting along with fellow True Detective star Woody Harrelson for another season, but in recent weeks their attention zeroed in on the Mike Hammer movies after Pizzolatto got him the script. Hammer has all the makings of another character the two talents can blow out of the water, and now the project will look to land a high-profile director to take over the reins. While McConaughey hasn't starred in a live-action movie since 2019's The Gentleman, he did reprise his role as the animated pick Sing 2 in 2021. The Oscar winner has a big 2025 ahead of him. His film The Rivals of Amza King premiered at this year's South by Southwest Film Festival and quickly became one of the big winners of the fest, earning rave reviews following its premiere. He has the Apple Original Films thriller The Last Bus bowing later this year with Paul Greengrass directing. By the way, Paul Greengrass would be a perfect director for a Mike Hammer film. Apple recently released the teaser trailer, which drew huge buzz on social media, with many expecting the film and McConaughey to be back in the mix among contenders this award season. He is also set to make his return to TV with the Apple and Skydance series Brothers, which reunites him with Harrelson, who's also set to co-star. Pizzolatto's recent work includes his first feature film as a writer-director, Easy's Waltz, as well as multiple projects for Skydance, and a television show in development with Netflix. McConaughey is repped by William Morris Entertainment and Jorn Levine Barnes, and Pizzolatto is repped by WME, Gillette Management, and Eric Brooks. So there you go. That's right, folks. True Noir writer Max Allan Collins is executive producing the Mike Hammer movie for Skydance. My good friend and compatriot and creative partner in True Noir is making a big movie for one of the biggest movie companies in Hollywood. And interestingly enough, Nick Pizzolatto's, he created the HBO series True Detective, which is the name of the first novel in the Nathan Heller series, which is why we called True Noir The Assassination of Anton Cermak instead of True Detective. So it all comes full circle. So big congratulations to Max. Interestingly enough, if anyone listens to our great audio drama, and I'll call it great because I think it's great, it was Max's scripts that made it great. Why anybody would want Max Allan Collins not to adapt his work is beyond me. I mean, True Noir, The Assassination of Anton Cermak, is a perfect example. And, of course, the movie that we are trying to make now, the True Noir movie, which is based on the Nathan Heller novella, Dying in the Post-War World, a movie that we're, trying to get on the front burner, is something that he wrote. And I think his script writing abilities are self-evident on every page. So it's really great to be involved with Max Allan Collins, and the friendship and the working relationship that we've developed over the last year and a half has meant a great deal to me. And I'm very honored and privileged to have a friend that now has a huge project at one of the biggest production companies in Hollywood who is buying a studio. So congrats, Max. And you're working with the creator of True Detective, and you're going to get busy living with Matthew McConaughey. Really amazing. I mean, Matthew McConaughey playing Mike Hammer. Stacy Keach played Mike Hammer. Many people. Mickey Spillane played Mike Hammer himself. So there's a lot of history there, but congratulations to that. And very excited to see where it's going to go. And I can't wait to go to the premiere with you, Max, and your wife, of course. I'm already inviting myself. I can't wait to see executive producer Max Allan Collins. You'll probably have to share with Mickey's daughter or granddaughter. But, you know, you get what you negotiate, not what you deserve. Remember? So congratulations to Max Allan Collins on that one. Very, very exciting to see friends of yours, collaborators, get to have some great success. Of course, Max was also the writer of the graphic novel Road to Perdition that the movie was based on. His Quarry novels were turned into a series for Cinemax. There was a Quarry novel that was adapted into a movie with Tom Sizemore. So very exciting. I wanted to start tonight's show with a letter. I want to read a letter. This comes to me from Frank Ojeda from Flower Mound, Texas. Random thoughts from a 1967-born geek. Hi, Robert. I just had some general thoughts about DC, Marvel, and Star Wars that I thought I might share. I've been watching you on YouTube for several years now, and I've enjoyed hearing your observations on your site as well as on the John Campea show. I remember you from the early days of Collider way back with the late, great John Schnepp. I'm pretty sure we are about the same age. I was born in March of 1967. It's very close. So it's cool to hear opinions from an OG geek like myself who has the same perspective and similar childhood experiences. Most of the people you do shows with are too young to know what it was like to see Star Wars on the big screen in 1977. They just don't have the understanding of what films that a kid could go see at that time were like. Most movies were too adult themes, and ones with special effects were played for laughs, like Disney comedies such as The Strongest Man in the World, the Dexter Riley movie starring Kurt Russell, a young Kurt Russell, and Now You See Him, Now You Don't, and The Computer Wore Tennis Shoes. It's funny, my daughter laughs at me for measuring time based on that movie, but we met someone recently who was born in 75, and I said, oh, you were only 2 when Star Wars came out. I only refer to it now as 77. I very rarely call it A New Hope. It's because it's not called A New Hope. It's called Star Wars. Of course, I adore Empire, and I think it's virtually perfect. Side note, I rarely hear this mentioned, but when I first saw it at 13, I didn't know that was Yoda when he first appears to Luke. I thought he was actually taking Luke to see Yoda. By the way, so did everybody. We didn't know it was Yoda. We didn't know who he was. I assumed he was Yoda's servant or something. We all did. So I had a little extra cool moment watching it than people who see it today. Oh, totally. You know what? This is a really important point. When in The Empire Strikes Back, I mean, it's still there, but part of the prequel trilogy completely destroyed The Empire Strikes Back. Completely destroyed it. And I don't think I've ever forgiven George Lucas, not for the prequel trilogy, but for taking all of the surprises that were in The Empire Strikes Back out. Now, what our letter writer brings up about not knowing that Yoda was Yoda, that was a huge part of The Empire Strikes Back. When you first meet Yoda and he's rummaging through Luke's stuff and, mine, or I'll help you not. And there's a moment where Frank Oz changes his voice. When you hear Obi-Wan and Luke hears Obi-Wan and you hear Yoda go, I cannot teach him. It was a huge revelatory moment because no one had seen Yoda before. No one knew who Yoda was. And imagine sitting in that theater the first time, the day it opened. Actually, I saw it. Yeah, I did say the day it opened, 6 o'clock in the morning. My parents wouldn't let me go. It screened at midnight, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 9 o'clock. And I saw it at 9 o'clock in the morning. I went at 6. And that was a huge, big deal. When you and we, the audience, were seeing Yoda. And when Luke goes, Yoda, Like he's like taken aback, but also knows he fucked up. And we were that way. And that's something, I mean, nothing, all the big revelations in The Empire Strikes Back were completely, Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father. I mean, one of the great, I think probably the two greatest endings for imagination connoisseurs of any movie, if you didn't know that revelation, seeing it for the first time, was Empire Strikes Back and Planet of the Apes. Those are probably the two. And as a kid, which both of those feed into the topic of this show. But anyway, let me just keep going. I know you've mentioned that article, 50 Reasons Why Return of the Jedi Sucks, written by Dan Weber and published in Sci-Fi Universe, and I am in complete agreement, but I would add a few others as well. Example, a certain point of view. I just got my driver's license a few months earlier, and I remember blowing off school to go watch the first screening of Return of the Jedi with my buddy at Tulsa's main movie theater. By this time, does that mean you were there when Francis Ford Coppola made The Outsiders and Rumblefish? By this time, I would watch movies with more expectations, and I had already pictured some scenes I wanted to see, and when they were not there, it added to my disappointment. Basically, all the other Star Wars movies and shows have not registered with me at all. Even Andor, which was very well written and acted, didn't feel like Star Wars to me. It just wasn't very swashbuckling. As far as DC is concerned, I'm super stoked for the new James Gunn Superman. It looks like everything I've wanted in a Superman movie. Just based on the teaser from December, it's better than The Man of Steel. I'm almost positive that Pa Kent will not tell Clark that maybe it's okay to let a school bus full of kids die. I've actively tried avoiding seeing any of the recent trailers. Warner Brothers has a very bad history of showing way too much in their trailers. I remember the 6 or 7 Batman v Superman trailers showed Wonder Woman, Doomsday, and the full Batman warehouse scene. The only cool scene, pretty much the last 30 minutes of the movie. I hope this time when Supes and Bats finally team up, it's more logical. All they really need to do is lean into the fact that Batman is the ultimate cop and Superman is the ultimate fireman. I've never heard that before. I like that. Batman is an actual crime fighter. Superman will stop a crime, of course, but he doesn't actively go around trying to take down the Sopranos operations. That's what Batman's doing. As a kid, it always bugged me that an organized crime boss would want to get rid of Superman. If a meteor or a giant monster wipes out his city, what happens to his organization then? I would really like for Batman to caution Supes about interfering with his crime-fighting detective work or venturing too far into that territory. Supes could inspire Bats to be more of a hero and help with bigger threats, and of course they grow to admire and respect each other's abilities. As for Marvel and the MCU, I know they're trying to get the wheels back on the car, but they're swerving all over the road. I was surprised that Thunderbolts didn't perform better. I point the blame at Captain America Brave New World for being such a turd, as well as the previous movies being all substandard. To do a little Monday morning quarterbacking, there should have been a mandate that all new characters could only be introduced in a movie. Any sequel in a franchise should introduce a new character, like Cap Civil War gave us Spidey and Black Panther, whereas Iron Man 3 should have added someone new, but it missed the boat. The streaming series should have been team-ups with existing characters that have one-off adventures. No through-line story arcs, just 48-minute episodes like the old $6 Million Man episodes we grew up on. No world-ending threats, just heroes together solving a problem. Like maybe She-Hulk and Iron Man rescuing some kids in a cave or something. The Daredevil bank heist could have had Miss Marvel visiting her father. Each episode would be a different pairing of heroes, the quirkier the better. Seems to me it would have been a lot easier to get some of these big-name actors available for a couple of weeks or less to bang out an episode and not be tied down to a 4-month, 8-episode series. Then you could have had Halloween or Christmas-themed shows and eventually show them on the network, but you would not have to watch these to enjoy the films. They would have no impact on those storylines. But I've rambled enough. These were just some things I wanted to throw out there. Some of them were inspired by comments you made on your show or Campia's. Of course, I have lots of other opinions and thoughts. I would just like to have a time machine that would let me go back and have Max Fleischer make episodes of the Golden Age Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, and all the other Justice Society members. Thanks for reading this, if you made it this far. Frank Ojeda from Flower Mound, Texas. Well, Frank, what a great letter. Thank you for writing in, and I agree with a lot of what you say. Part of your letter actually inspired this show, the show topic. You know, for me, one of the things that people have always been astounded by. I don't know if astounded is the right word, but have always been, I don't know, amused by, maybe. People that have known me for my whole life, or known me for a vast majority of it, is, especially my mother, the fact that I really haven't changed in terms of my interests. That I guess my mom always thought that the Star Wars, the Star Trek, the James Bond, all of it, I would grow out of it eventually. My mom didn't think I would probably make it some kind of a career choice, or that I would be here on YouTube talking to you about, things in my childhood. But here we are. But it's a funny thing, because I've always kind of been motivated by all of this material, and people have always asked me, how did you know? Like, how did you know you were going to pursue these things? And my answer, I guess, has always been frustrating to people, in the sense that I didn't ever not know. I can't remember ever not knowing or not loving the things that I've loved. And I've always been sort of, I talk about this a lot on the show, but in terms of what I remember, in terms of when these interests gelled, was definitely when I was 5 years old. Kindergarten, Miss Savage's kindergarten class. And Miss Savage's kindergarten class, her name was Miss Savage, which was cool. She kind of looked like the blonde, in the B-52s with the big bouffant hairdo. Miss Savage had that big bouffant hairdo. And she used to make us sit in a circle. And she would have a popcorn popper, and she would take the lid off, and she would, which I guess she didn't worry about, oil splattering or whatever. But I don't know if it was like Fridays, but I just have this memory of her leaving. So when the popcorn would start popping, it would pop into the air, and we could all catch it and eat it. And I remember it was the first time in my life, because, my mom popped popcorn. We had Jiffy Pop. If you don't remember that, it came in like a hard foil container, and the popcorn would pop, and it would look like a crown. It would pop open, and the thing would open up, the foil thing would open up into a big, look like it was a crown that you would stick on your head, and you tore it open, you ate the popcorn out of it. Now we have paper bags, but Jiffy Pop was always cool. And then we had a Hamilton Beach. I remember a Hamilton Beach popcorn popper. And it was plastic, it had the plastic top, and then you would put butter, like a chunk of butter, a square of butter in the top, and as you cook the popcorn, it would dribble down and the popcorn would pop. But Miss Savage would take the top off and let the popcorn pop. And I remember when that happened, I always thought that you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to take the lid off the top of the popcorn popper. And I understood, but I remember that delighted me. It's just this idea that we had a teacher, this woman in a position of authority, and to be fair, she was pretty hot. I mean, I thought she was beautiful, because in my mind she was 10 feet tall, and she was teaching us things and art and all that. But when she sat us in a circle and opened up that thing, it was out of the ordinary. And to me, I loved it. I'm like, wow. And the fact that sometimes popcorn would fly up into the air, like you'd never, because you'd see it pop in a thing, but to see an uncontrolled pop happen, it's just, as a little kid, it was just, it was 5. But there was something about that. It sticks with me now. That was more than 50 years ago. And I still remember like it was yesterday. But it was that kind of thing that it was a very simple thing, but it was something that just delighted me. And I don't know if it was the transgressive nature of being a rebel popcorn maker. I don't know. I don't know what it was, but it was just something that stuck with me. And, when I saw the very first Twilight Zone episode I ever saw was To Serve Man, written by Jerome Bixby, who wrote Mirror Mirror for Star Trek. Or wait, maybe he didn't. He wrote It's a Good Life. I'm getting this wrong. See, I can't remember everything. I got to look that up. Find out who wrote To Serve Man. It wasn't, I don't think, wait, I got to find out because I'm messing up now. I've been messing up more lately. I'm forgetting things. Writer. Damon Knight. Damon Knight wrote To Serve. Wait, he wrote the story. Who wrote the Twilight Zone To Serve Man? Oh, so the episode was written by Rod Serling. Okay. He wrote To Serve Man, but it was based on a story by Damon Knight. There you go. Jerome Bixby wrote It's a Good Life. But so To Serve Man was the very first Twilight Zone episode I ever saw. And you had a flying saucer. It was stock footage, but you had a flying saucer in it. You had a giant alien, a Canamit. And I remember the end of the episode was like Planet of the Apes, shocking to my young 5-year-old brain that was trying to comprehend. And the thing about it was if you think about it, if you've seen To Serve Man, the ending is the perfect shock value moment for a kid, because you realize To Serve Man and it's a cookbook. At 5 years old, I got it. Like, I totally got it. And I had yet to understand that extraterrestrials could be bad. I mean, I had Star Trek, you had antagonists, but you didn't have, like, they weren't, when there was bad stuff, it wasn't like most of the humanoid aliens were okay. They turned out to be all right, but not in To Serve Man. And at my 5-year-old brain, this is the same 5-year-old brain that would run out of the room and when James Earl Jones would count to 10, on Sesame Street. But To Serve Man freaked me the fuck out. Like because I knew what it meant. I knew that, oh my God, they're going to eat people. They're going to eat man. Because it was a thing that a 5-year-old could get, but you had to be attentive. It was an intellectual exercise, but that's what got me hooked. But what was amazing about it, what was amazing about Planet of the Apes, Star Trek, was all of it to me was wondrous. Like, it was all amazing. And it lingered. I would spend time, probably a lot more than I care to admit, even now, 50 years later, thinking about all of these things. Thinking about essentially what some people would call nonsense or unreality. I couldn't get enough. And that never went away. And it would spill over into I remember in Seattle, we had tent caterpillars. And the tent caterpillars in the springtime, they would show up, they would be everywhere. And they would build these like silken, they were like webs, but they were all over the place. They were huge. I mean, they were these big, chunky, they weren't quite sandworms, but they were everywhere. Tent caterpillars. And I remember that we would get them and we would burn them. This is terrible. We were kids. What do you want? We would burn them with magnifying glasses. You get a little magnifying glass. And I remember I hated the fact that we were torturing. I didn't. It was kind of cool because they were a nuisance. They were a problem. And there were billions of them everywhere. So, but it wasn't the killing of 10 caterpillars that was amazing to me. It was the fact that you could take a little magnifying glass. My mom had one with like an ornate ivory handle that she had in her bedroom on like her jewelry case or whatever. I don't know why it was there, but it was always there, and I would go get it, and we'd go into the backyard. And it was the fact that you could take sunlight and actually focus the magnifying glass in a certain way, and you'd make a laser beam, that would. And I remember as a kid going, "That's amazing!" Like I thought that was an amazing thing. It would never cease to amaze me that, and then I figured out we don't have to kill 10 caterpillars. Like, you could burn paper, and I remember figuring out that the more focus you could get the light, like you'd get the phone book out, like how many pages of the phone book can we burn? And it wasn't, the burning was cool, being able to set a fire, it was cool, but it was the fact that you could get a big, thick phone book and you're like, I wonder how deep into the phone book can we get sunlight to bore into did anybody else do this? I don't know. But this was the thing. It was, all of it was wondrous. Even the fact that there was all these 10 caterpillars, like, where did they come from? How were they just all of a sudden one day everywhere? And the thing was, everything instilled in me some kind of a sense of wonder. And I think it was kind of all anchored to the media I was consuming. You know, whether it could, and it was all science fiction, fantasy, horror, and then of course the books. But I remember at 5, you know, I wasn't reading hardcore science fiction. I was like reading them. What is the 5? Was it the 5 or the 7 Chinese brothers? You know, one of them could drink up the whole ocean. You know, and these books had these. It was usually whimsical, and maybe that's why I've always been prone to loving things that are whimsical, but in a certain way. Frog and Toad are friends. I was really into the Frog and Toad are friends books, and the fact that I took those books seriously. You know, okay, Frog and Toad they're buddies. I never, like, it was all, I took it all serious. Like, none of it wasn't unimportant. It was all important. And because I was learning things, I was learning ideas, and I was learning concepts, and I was learning, like, To Serve Man was teaching the 5-year-old Bobby B about the universe. Like these aliens were lying to us. I'm like, they knew they were playing a game. They left behind their book, you know, they left it behind at the United Nations. And they knew that we would figure it out eventually. They knew it. They were playing with us. And then they were going to eat us, which meant they were frowning on us the whole time. They didn't like us in particular. We were food. We were cattle. We were dumb. You know, and they're like, we're going to leave this book behind. I wonder how long it's going to take them to figure it out. And then, of course, you had the main character who breaks the fourth wall and walks in and asks, what ship are you on? I mean, he was talking to me. Lloyd Bachner was Hart Bachner's dad. Lloyd Bachner was talking to me, and I'm looking around in my little family room going, what the hell ship am I on? What do I know? I didn't understand what breaking the fourth wall was, but this guy was talking right directly to me. And I was like, I'm fucked. And I didn't know it. But then I'm also in my house, so how could I be? So there was all kinds of things raging, running around in my head. I didn't know what it all meant. But, you know, I would walk around no matter where I was going, like whether I was walking to school, whether I was skateboarding to school, whether I was on a school bus. There was something amazing everywhere you went. And then as I started to get a religious education, you know, friends of mine were Catholic. I'd go to church with them. And then I started to go to shul. I'd go to synagogue every week on the weekends and get a Jewish education. You're reading scripture. And I'm like, this scripture is awesome. You know, it's like King David's going to fight Goliath. You know, that's amazing. that's incredible. And you, all of this stuff was instilling this sense of wonder in me. You know, like that's why I love animals. I never owned a dog. I've explained this. Gilbert's now 7 years old. We got Gilbert as a puppy. This is the first dog that I ever owned. Now we have 4 dogs, and I raised 3 litters of puppies. And I've talked about the fact, even now as an older man, interacting with dogs is like the closest thing. In my mind, they're alien beings. You know, they're literally alien creatures. They live in a different universe than I do. They perceive things differently, but they can communicate like we communicate. They can't speak, but and I completely anthropomorphize them in some certain way, but they're empathetic. They understand your emotions. They know when you're mad at them. They'll do something they know is wrong and sheepishly walk away when you call them on it. So to me, having dogs and raising these 3 litters of puppies is nothing less. It was truly a sense of wonder. And watching these little animals' personalities develop and interact with you like they know who you are. Like they know what you smell like. They know if you've been sweating, they want to come. Little Isla likes to lick. I guess I become a salt lick, a walking, talking salt lick for her. She loves nothing more than that. And then she'll curl up when she's done licking my arm and curl up next to me because she feels like, how does she know to feel safe? Like these dogs trust me entirely. These are animals that live on an entirely, they see things and hear things that I don't see and hear. And they trust me. So they know things about me that I don't even know. And isn't that amazing? Like, that's an amazing thing. And like, we have lizards. It gets hot, and there's been these lizards that live in our yard. and they live in certain areas, and they know that I planted this apple tree, and Marcel, I named him Marcel, and I water the apple tree, and they know that if I come out and water, that it's okay. I'm not going to chase them, that when I'm going to water, they can then drink. How do they know that? Like, I know it's repetition or something, but that shows cognitive reasoning on the parts of these lizards. And they know, they'll run a certain, they won't run entirely away from me. They'll run a certain length of time or distance, and then they'll stop. And then they know they're either going to get water from me, but I'm not a threat. How do they know that? I mean, and I know that they know because they move around when I move around. So they're aware of my presence. Now, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I see wonder everywhere. But I can tell that the rest of the world doesn't. And the one thing that used to, I think, that when I was a kid, fandom, imagination connoisseurdom, the one thing that bound us all together was what we loved, our media, whether it was music, whether it was movies, whether it was television episodes, comic books, records, whatever it was. Those things instilled in us a sense of wonder. You know, it made our imaginations race. It opened our minds to possibility. It made us contemplate things we might look up something we don't even, what does it mean? You know, what is all, and to have grown up when I grew up from, you know, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, we had an explosion of movies, music, television shows, comics, all the imagination connoisseur arts that we loved. You know, Kiss, the first rock band I ever saw, was like the genre rock band. You had Ace, the Star Child. You had Ace Frehley, the astronaut from space. Paul Stanley was the Star Child. Peter Criss was like the werecat, you know, and Gene Simmons was the demon. I mean, Taylor, when I was 10 years old, every kid, all my friends, we all gave Kiss Alive to each other for our birthdays, or sometimes you'd get Scorpions Love Drive. But that was the thing. And Kiss was like this band, and they weren't a hard band to comprehend. They weren't like a prog rock band. You know, I guess I knew the names, or I had to figure out what the words deuce and strutter meant. But for the most part, hotter than hell, you know, dressed to kill. It was not hard to figure it all out, but it was like, come on. So it made sense that the first rock concert I ever went to was the Dynasty tour. That was it. Still had their original makeup on. I mean, but it was the kind of thing where, again, a sense of wonder. But nowadays, I don't see as much of it. But you know where I have been seeing a lot of it's people going back and watching like Popcorn in Bed, that channel. There's a new channel that I've been watching. It's a guy, he's a young guy, bearded dude. I don't know his name. He calls himself a music producer, but he's going back and he's been listening to all these famous records. Today I just watched his YouTube video on The Who. He was discovering The Who. And I'm like, this kid's calling himself, he must be in his early 20s. He's calling himself a music producer, but he's listening to like the most classic. He listened, you know, to the Beach Boys, and he listened to Led Zeppelin, and it's like he's discovering these things for the first time, and you can see that he has a sense of wonder about it all. Now, my first question is, how do you call yourself a movie producer and you haven't listened to the most famous albums of all time? Which is strange to me. I mean, at least he's doing it now. But it's like, and he's always amazed. He's always amazed at everything he listens to. And I'm like, how could you go into music production and not know these things when music production, literally rock and roll and pop music production, was being forged? It's all right there. But anyway, one of the things I love about watching these reaction videos is watching people accept them at face value. And you can see that movies are, and also Star Trek episodes, are instilling, they still have the power to instill a sense of wonder into people. Now, why is that? And how come that, especially out of fandom, has been bled out of fandom. Now, I would say one of the biggest reasons is that the people that were creating the things, I would say that the act of creation, I've talked about fraudulent creation on this show. And to me, fraudulent creation is the enemy of having a sense of wonder, because you're watching something that was created for the wrong reasons by the wrong people, like all of modern Star Trek. Like, you watch the trailer, and I haven't opined on this, but the trailer for Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 3 is one of the worst things I've ever seen. It's not as bad. I mean, like, Section 31 was wantonly awful, but everything wrong with, and it's wrong in a different way than Discovery was. But I'll give you an example. We all love Galaxy Quest. I love Galaxy Quest. Galaxy Quest is a great movie, but it has one huge flaw that irks me to no end. In the movie Galaxy Quest, the show Galaxy Quest, that these characters, that all these actors are from, the show itself as depicted within the universe of the movie, the show Galaxy Quest is not to be taken seriously. It looks like a Sid Marty Krofft produced it, and it's a Saturday morning show. It's all goofy. By Grapthar's hammer, and all that. Never give up, never surrender. Star Trek wasn't like that. Star Trek wasn't goofy. Yet the pop culture sense memory of the original series is. It is goofy now. And if Galaxy Quest had made, although it's a comedy, so I understand, I allow it. I thought the Black Mirror USS Callister episode, the new episode from this season, was even better than the first. I thought that was terrific. But the trailer for Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 3 is just a goof. The whole thing is a goof. And when you get Spock going high five down low, I'm like, what am I watching? There's no credibility here. And it has been, and the portrayal of Spock there is no character more misunderstood than the character of Spock has been since 2009 in Star Trek. Unbelievable misunderstanding of the character, and a character, a Vulcan. I guess you can't say he was a human, but he was a character that was the smartest guy in the room. And he had to be the best Vulcan, and he had to be the best human. But the thing is, he could never be truly the best human because he was also trying to suppress his emotions, which he had, but he had to control them. So but he still had to be the best in each. He was not some autistic high school student. He was not on the spectrum. And every other human character he wasn't fucking Data. He knew. His mother was human. Anyway, don't get me on a rant because I'll get off topic. But the thing was, Spock had a sense of wonder to him. And that's why he left Vulcan. And that's why he joined Starfleet and became the first Vulcan in Starfleet. Well, maybe he wasn't the very first, but, there was a Vulcan crew on the Intrepid, I know. But Spock had a sense of wonder, even though he probably shouldn't have. But that's why he went, because he was astonished by the universe. He had a sense of wonder. But nowadays, because so much of what we have to watch is a regurgitation, it's owned by a corporation, it's made by a corporation, not because somebody had a reason to make it, not because a filmmaker or somebody creative said, I want to use this medium to tell a story. No, it's a corporation it's an asset. They want to continue making money from it, so they'll find somebody to work on it. They'll look at a spreadsheet and figure out we're going to get this person to work on that. Good for them. But anyway, which brings me to Superman. What am I? I'm now almost an hour. God, is it 10:18? I'm still talking. I haven't brought up Superman yet. Well, here's the thing about Superman, especially Superman on film. When there's been a lot of talk because Kathleen Kennedy was the BFI found a Technicolor print. The thing about a Technicolor print is it does not fade, and that's one of the great things about Technicolor, because the process, it doesn't fade, like it doesn't turn pink. So if you have a Technicolor print of Star Wars, theoretically, it probably looks just as good as when it was struck. So the BFI found a print of the original Star Wars. I have seen some of a Technicolor print of Star Wars. I saw it, I don't know, 30 years ago. It was not this print, somebody else's print up in Seattle. It was beautiful, absolutely stunning. And it was the original version of Star Wars. Now, I don't know which soundtrack. Obviously, the original Star Wars, when it was released, depending on what format you saw it in, it had different soundtracks, stereo, mono. So there was some different sound effects that were missing depending on which version you watched. But the BFI screened this version. Kathleen Kennedy showed up. George Lucas probably would never have allowed this to be shown, but maybe he would have because it was this was a Technicolor print. Kathleen Kennedy went and said, this is not a bootleg screening. This is an actual sanctioned screening. This is an important find. Hopefully Disney will be able to get the original Star Wars out, strike a print from that. It'll be the best color-timed version of the movie ever. But they were able to do that. But I think that now, the great IPs that we had. I mean, hell, Ben Stiller is going to make a new Twilight Zone movie. I think one of the problems with revisiting the Twilight Zone is the Twilight Zone has become a genre unto itself. A Twilight Zone story, had like O. Henry has a twist or has something. Everyone knows what a Twilight Zone. If you say a Twilight Zone twist, everyone knows what that means. The problem is, when you're doing a Twilight Zone story now, there's been so many derivations of those stories. I mean, there's 157 episodes of the original Twilight Zone over 5 seasons. And then there's the 80s revival, and there's been 2 other revivals of the Twilight Zone. And so everyone knows what a Twilight Zone story is supposed to be, which means it's really difficult now to come up with a good Twilight Zone story. And is it going to be an anthology movie like the Steven Spielberg, George Miller, Joe Dante, and John Landis directed Twilight Zone movie? You want to see something really scary? I mean, is it going to be something like that? Believe it or not, that movie is 42 years old. Great Jerry Goldsmith score, by the way. And what's it going to be? What's a new Twilight Zone movie going to be? Can they make a new Twilight Zone movie? Anyway, Superman. The last Superman trailer, the one they released, tickets now on sale. When I watched that trailer, and it finally gave you got a little more sense of the characters and what's going on in that trailer. What I love about that trailer is how full of whimsy and wonder it has in it. Everything from the color palette to the addition of Krypto to Kaiju to Luthor to the Rube Goldbergian focusing the light of the sun onto Superman to heal him, which I think is a really cool idea, to Superman robots, to the Justice Gang, to call it what you want. A movie that is chock-a-block full of what it was like to read Superman comics when I was a kid. And so that in itself, we've never seen something like that. We've seen things that, I mean, obviously the CW Superman shows, Smallville, had things like the Justice Society in it, but it's an overall tone. See, this has to do something. When you have something writ large on the big screen, it's different than if it's a TV show. The writing is different. The visual effects are different. The cinematography is different. But what I've seen, especially of these latest things, is I feel a sense of wonder when I'm... And the thing is, to have a sense of wonder means you are, by definition, looking outside of yourself. It's not about you. You aren't defining yourself through something else. You're looking outward to something that amazes, delights, whatever it is. It's outside of you. And you're bringing it inside, and it instills in you something that wasn't there before. So that to me is what a sense of wonder, and it doesn't matter what it is. You could be interacting with a dog. You could look at a small child smile at you. A kid might say something funny. Whatever you see in the world that isn't you, that you can look at, and it makes you feel something that is above and beyond. And it can be a small moment. It can be a large moment. But I do think that when I was growing up, watching TV and going to the movies, almost all media filled me with a sense of wonder because it was full of ideas and images that I hadn't seen before. It was all new. You know, I hadn't seen it. It was all new to me. And, you know, with the Twilight Zone, every episode was different. So you never knew what you were going to get. Star Trek was basically an anthology as well. So even though I'd started to see those episodes over and over again, there were moments that I wanted to get, because I don't know, VCRs, you can watch it over and over. When it would show up, you're like, oh, it's this episode. I hadn't seen this one. Oh, it's Requiem for Methuselah. And then sometimes, because it was syndicated, sometimes you'd see Flint shrink the Enterprise down onto a table and Kirk would look into it. And sometimes you wouldn't because they'd take it out for syndication. And then you would wonder, did I ever see that? And then it became mysterious. Maybe I dreamt it. But that was, you know, in syndication, they went from 52 minutes to 50 minutes down to 45 minutes. And then when Star Trek The Next Generation came along, they just said, fuck it. Our show's going to be 45 minutes long, so we could have that many more commercials. But whatever. There's a couple of articles I wanted to jump into about a sense of wonder. Actually, a lot of articles. I did post them in the down below. But before I get into this, I think I should check and see what you guys might have to say. I don't know if anyone is sending in super chats or anything, but well, actually, a lot of people are. Let me jump into these. First of all, Sonny Dominguez, the king of squirting, has been a member for 48 months. Says, have you played Helldivers 2 yet? I have played Helldivers 2. It's so much fun. I'm not a gamer, but it hits that chord with 40 plus men. You know, we didn't get a Starship Troopers game. Helldivers 2 is a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Darth Plato says, read the article in Matthew McConaughey's voice. I don't know if I could do that. Stephen Langford says, the Sean Connery James Bond 4K Steelbook collection was limited to only 15,300. I was lucky to have pre-ordered mine before they sold out. My collection number is 1,331. What's your collection number, Rob? Happy birthday, thanks. I don't know, Stephen, because Amazon canceled my order. So I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to do that by other means. But I'm very disappointed. And that's my Steelbook order. So I did get the other order, but it was the Steelbook that I wanted. So I'll have to go buy it by other means. Jordan Saller says, welcome to a friend of the channel. Well, thank you, Jordan. Appreciate that. Bijo Hunt says, Union Terminal in Cincinnati, the inspiration for the Hall of Justice, is confirmed to be in Superman. Justice League post-credit scene or more. Batman, maybe. I'm convinced Batman's going to be in the post-credit scene for Superman. Now, I do not know one way or another, but I'd certainly put him in there. Because James Gunn was talking about post-credit scenes and how they should matter, how they should have some resonance. You should know where you're going. Since apparently Supergirl is already in the movie, I would imagine that they're going to give us... they might give us... the obvious would be obviously a Supergirl post-credit scene, but they might... if I were James Gunn and I'm building a universe, I would take you to Batman. So... but yeah, the Union Terminal is supposed to be the Hall of Justice. I love it. We'll see. Major Chai Chai says, I got good news this week. I'm going to be able to go to Comic-Con this year. Julian, Sonny, Rick, Horace, and the Comic Doctor. Hope to see you there. Well, I have panels on Thursday, on Friday, and on Sunday. Max Allan Collins will be there. We have a panel together on Friday. John Cross has sent a super chat in, $20 super chat, and says, I can't wait for the movies next month. If tracking numbers are right, the box office could come close to making $500 million just in July. I Know What You Did Last Summer is also being overshadowed by the big releases, as well it should be. I think it'll do good, though. You know, I'm really excited. You got Jurassic World Rebirth, you've got Superman, you got Fantastic Four First Steps. It's going to be a big month. I hope so. Royston S. Bailey, thoughts on the trilogy A Remembrance of Earth's Past? You mean the three-body problem? I loved it. You know, I don't know if... okay, here's the thing. There are two different adaptations of the three-body problem. There's the original Chinese version that you can watch on... was it 10%? 10 cent? the Tencent channel, and I watched all of it. It's a quite good adaptation. It's much more faithful to the original novel. And then there's the Weiss and Benioff Netflix version that I also really liked quite a bit. The Remembrance of Earth's Past is I think it's a great trilogy. It gets very weird. I mean, very weird in terms of the science of it all. But I loved it. Speaking of which, I can't get it. Everything's going to fall over. Well, since you asked, here, I got to move stuff over. I have to move stuff in order to show this to you. It's going to take a while. I'm always organizing stuff, so hang on. Since you asked, as I get it before this is a model kit now, and I can't tell you whether or not this is a model kit from the Chinese. This is the Natural Selection. This is a Chinese model kit of the Natural Selection. That is a ship from the second book, from the Dark Forest, and this is the flagship of the Asian fleet. This is actually a very cool model. It lights up. Anyway, so yes, I don't think I've ever bought a model kit from a book before. That's just a book. But there you go. That's how much I liked the Dark Forest trilogy. Anyway, or the Remembrance of Earth's Past trilogy. So it's quite good. So there you go. And that was Royston S. Bailey who asked for that one. Jordan Saller, it's Jordan Saller says, I'm looking forward to Superman. I got my tickets already. It looks like a comic book come to life, and I'm overjoyed with this approach. I don't know how well it will do. I'm pretty sure I'll love it. I think it's going to do very, very well. I think it's going to do very, very well. Royston S. Bailey comes back and says, is Star Trek Strange New World worse than bad Voyager episodes? You know what? I think the problem with Strange New Worlds, even bad Voyager episodes were more interested in being Star Trek than Strange New Worlds is. Strange New Worlds it devolved into a soap opera. It's much more interested in the interpersonal relationships of its characters than telling action, adventure, allegorical science fiction stories. And that's what really bothers me. It's, I just don't like it because the people that make it aren't really interested in science fiction. So that's too bad. Fearless Wolf says, I am a fortunate 36-year-old fan born in 1989, but thanks to my mom, I grew up with OG Star Wars on VHS, RoboCop, TNG, DS9, The Last Starfighter. I may not have grown up with that era, but sometimes I wish I did. Well, you had a good mother. She'd probably show those things to you for the first time, so that's good. That's good. MTH says, Spaceballs 2 thoughts, 35 years too late. You know what? I never liked Spaceballs. I thought it was dumb. I know. I thought it was dumb. What can I say? But I don't think it's. Look, you can't say 35 years is too late if Star Trek, Top Gun Maverick made $1.5 billion. It's never too late if it's good. And you know what? Spaceballs 2 cannot be worse than Spaceballs 1. So, at least in my mind. And Marco Esquindola is a $50 super chat. Marco says, I'm a lifelong Superman and DC fan. I enjoy every Superman movie. 3 and 4 are meh. Superman Returns was the first since Christopher Reeve. A huge deal. I loved it. The Snyder trilogy is epic for adults. Superman 2025 will offer a new vibe. I am so pumped. The GOAT is back. Well, first of all, I love hearing you say that because I think there's room to like all of this. It is a new vibe. It is a different vibe. And that's the thing that I don't like. You don't have to like it, but I do think that one of the reasons that people are rejecting the certain groups of people is the whimsy, the sense of wonder might be something that they're not interested in, which I understand. I get that. I just wish that people would give it a shot, give it a chance first. Why not? Why not give it a shot? Well, anyway, I have a lot of articles, and I wanted to read them. And they are about a sense of wonder. And I know it's a long show. I can keep going. If people want to tune out, then catch up later. And the first article is, this is from a website called bigthink.com. And it was published on April 20th, 2023. And it was written by Ross Pomeroy. And here it is. Why Kids Lose Their Sense of Wonder, according to Carl Sagan. As celebrated science communicator Carl Sagan noticed, between first grade and 12th grade, kids often lose their sense of scientific wonder. In his book, by the way, everybody should read this book, The Demon-Haunted World, Sagan placed most of the blame for this unfortunate trend on indifferent adults, who all too often chide children for their boundless curiosity. My mother certainly did. Bright, curious children are a national and world resource, Sagan wrote. They need to be cared for, cherished, and encouraged. Celebrated science communicator Carl Sagan had a way of speaking and writing that instilled listeners and readers with wonder and nurtured the human drive to explore. It was partially for this reason that the Cornell University scientist and narrator of the timeless PBS documentary Cosmos was often invited into schools to guest teach kids of all ages. In his book, The Demon-Haunted World, by the way, I cannot recommend that book enough, Sagan shared how regularly impressed he was with kindergartners and first graders. Many of these children are natural-born scientists. Although heavy on the wonder side and light on the skepticism, they're curious, intellectually vigorous, provocative and insightful. Questions bubble out of them. But at the same time, Sagan noted, a disconcerting transformation that consistently occurs by the time kids grow to become seniors in high school. They memorize facts, by and large, though the life behind those facts has gone out of them. They've lost much of the wonder and gained very little skepticism. They're worried about asking dumb questions. They're willing to accept inadequate answers. Sagan speculated on why this invariably happens. I'd guess that it's partially peer pressure not to excel, partially that society teaches short-term gratification, partially the impression that science or mathematics won't buy you a sports car, partly that so little is expected of students, he wrote. Are adults to blame? But according to Sagan, those myriad factors all pale in comparison to a more pernicious reason: the indifference of adults when confronted with a young child's effervescent wonder. Too many teachers and parents answer with irritation or ridicule, or quickly move on to something else. Children soon recognize that somehow this kind of question annoys the grown-ups. A few more experiences like it, and another child has been lost to science, Sagan wrote. What would be a better way to handle kids' frequent bursts of inquisitiveness? The obvious response, Sagan said, is simply to try and answer their queries. Even an incomplete attempt constitutes a reassurance and encouragement, he noted. If you truly have no idea where to begin when a child forces you to grapple with why the grass is green or how the earth formed, you can look it up on your phone and translate the facts as best you can. Better yet, you could voyage to the local library or, if possible, run an experiment that addresses their query. And if their question doesn't yet have a satisfactory answer, Sagan suggested a reply for this scenario as well. Maybe when you grow up, you'll be the first to find out. Perhaps one essential way that humanity advances is through turnover. As generations of people pass, others grow to take their place, bringing novel questions, fresh ideas, vibrant energy, and often a burning drive to change the world for the better. In this model, there may be nothing more precious than an adolescent filled with wonder. Affirming kids' fundamental urge to explore is fertilizer for their brains. Bright, curious children are a national and world resource, Sagan wrote. They need to be cared for, cherished, and encouraged. Amen. You know, I don't know if I was telling this story on this show or I was telling it to somebody a couple weeks ago. But when I was in the third grade, I had a third grade teacher named Mrs. Young. And Mrs. Young, we were talking about voting. And we were talking about boundaries. Like, county boundaries and property boundaries. And I asked the question in the class, I said, what happens if your house, if there's a boundary that goes right through the middle of your house? Because, in my young mind, that could happen. And we got to talking about it. And Mrs. Young didn't know the answer. And she said to me, why don't you write a letter to find out? And so she found out the place that I had to write to. And it was this is in Washington State. And it was the Boundary Review Board is where I had to write. And I wrote a letter. I said, what happens if the house, if the boundary goes right through your house, and which county could you vote in? And I still have this letter. I should have got it before the show. They wrote me a letter back. And I said, can you, as a kid, I said, can you vote in both counties' elections? And the letter said, no, you would have to pick one. You'd have to declare, or either the state would declare. I don't remember exactly what it said, but it was a stupid question that a kid comes up with. But you're hearing about these things like, oh, there's a boundary, and the first thing you think about, well, what if the house is split in two? What happens? But she didn't make me, but she found out. She didn't say you have to do this. She thought it was an interesting question. She encouraged my question, and then she found out where I needed to write, and I did write to them. I was one of those kids that wrote letters to places. Like, I would write letters. There were a couple times when I had, I don't even remember, it was a photo book that had rockets in it or something, and it was all done with miniatures. They built these miniature sets. It was very Jerry Anderson, and it was a book. And I remember tracing one of the rockets, and I sent it to AMT Model Company, the model company that made the Star Trek models. And I said, you should make a model of this rocket. And I traced it out of a book and sent it, and I got a letter back. And they said, well, it takes a long time to figure out what models we should make and all that. But we really appreciate your interest, and thanks for buying our models. But when you're a kid growing up in the 70s, man, and I guess in the 80s, you could write letters. I wrote letters to Criterion. I said, I've heard rumors that you're going to start doing letterbox laser discs. Is it true you might do Blade Runner? And they wrote me back. I still have that letter. So, there was, I don't know if people do that anymore. You can send emails, but I was a kid letter writer, and I would get shit. People would send me stuff back, and it was, I was encouraged. My mom, my parents, they didn't discourage me. They appreciated it. But my mom, like I told the story in the second grade, she finally had to tell me to shut up at dinner because everything I learned, I had to explain. I had to say it. Well, here's another article that I wanted to read, and this is from a website called mindful.org. And, oh man, see, I hate when that happens. I have these, I don't know why. There we go. Mindful.org. And this article is called The Science of Wonder. And this was published February 16th, 2023. On a blustery January, say in 2019, I looked at my iPhone. Oh, wait, I should say who wrote this, shouldn't I? Dasher Keltner. Dasher Keltner wrote this on February 16th, 2023, and it's from Mindful, a website. On a blustery January day, say in 2019, I looked at my iPhone on my gym bag, and there were two texts from my brother's wife, Kim. Can you come here as fast as possible? 15 minutes later from my mom. It's over. Rolf took the cocktail. He's leaving us. Rolf is my younger brother, born a year after me in a small clinic in Jalisco, Mexico. The cocktail was the end-of-life opiates he took, which usually ends a human life in an hour or two. I picked up my wife, Molly, and our daughters, Natalie and Serafina, in Berkeley, then my mom in Sacramento. We arrived at Rolf and Kim's home in the foothills of the Sierras at 10 p.m. Rolf was in his bed downstairs, lying on his stomach and right cheek, his head tilted upward. My dad held his foot. I leaned in near his midsection, and my mom stroked his thin hair. Rolf's face was full and flushed. The sunken eyes and gaunt cheeks caused by colon cancer were gone. The tightened skin around his mouth smoothed. His lips curled upward at the corners. I rested my right hand on his left shoulder, a rounded protrusion of bone. I held it the way I would smooth granite stones we used to find near the rivers we swam in as young brothers. Rolf, this is Dash. You are the best brother in the world, I said. My daughter Natalie laid her hand lightly on his shoulder blades. We love you, Rolf. The cycle of his breathing slowed. He was listening, aware. Listening to Rolf's breath, I sensed the vast expanse of 55 years of our brotherhood. A brotherhood of awe. Roaming Laurel Canyon in the late 60s and skateboarding through the Volkswagen-lined streets. In our adolescence and young adulthood, walking the wild foothills of the Sierras, exultant trips to Mexico, and then becoming teachers and fathers to daughters. A light radiated from Rolf's face, pulsating in concentric circles, spreading outward, touching us. The chatter in my mind, clasping words about the stages of colon cancer and survival rates, faded. I could sense a force around his body pulling him away, and questions in my mind. What is Rolf thinking? What is he feeling? What does it mean for him to die? A voice in my mind said, I feel awe. What is wonder? A positive emotion characterized by feelings of surprise, curiosity, and awe when encountering something novel or beyond current understanding. Scientific benefits of wonder: activates reward centers in the brain, reduces stress and inflammatory markers, enhances cognitive flexibility and learning, fosters connection with others and the world. Cultivating wonder: practicing openness to new experiences, mindful observation of everyday phenomenon, engaging with nature, art, and big questions, adopting a beginner's mind approach. Research findings: wonder has been linked to increased pro-social behavior, greater life satisfaction, and better health outcomes. Awe is the emotion that arises when we encounter vast mysteries that transcend our understanding of the world. My research from 26 cultures show that people find awe in the 8 wonders of life, which are the moral beauty of others, collective movement, nature, visual design, music, spirituality, big ideas, and encountering the beginning and end of life. Knowing that watching the end of life is a universal wonder soothed me as I watched my brother die. A new science of awe has charted how awe transforms the self, rendering it small, quiet, and humble. In one study, when travelers from 42 countries were stopped in Yosemite Valley and asked to draw a picture of themselves, the images they drew were considerably smaller than those drawn by participants at bustling and entertaining Fisherman's Wharf. Even the ego-related regions of the brain, together referred to as the default mode network, are deactivated during awe. Awe opens our minds to the truth that we as individuals are part of something much larger than the self. For example, when participants standing near a large replica of a T-Rex skeleton filled in the sentence stem, I am, in 20 different ways, they were less likely than participants in a controlled condition to define themselves in terms of individual desires and preferences, and more likely to define themselves in terms of shared qualities with others. Awe unleashes what William James called the saintly tendencies of religious experience: sharing, cooperation, and care. In one study, after looking up at an awe-inspiring grove of tall eucalyptus trees, participants picked up more pens dropped by a stranger nearby. Awe is registered in bodily responses, perhaps the kind that led Walt Whitman to observe, "If the soul is not in the body, then where is the soul?" Experiences of awe activate the vagus nerve, which wanders from the top of your spinal cord through your throat, heart, lungs, and digestive organs. Awe slows your heart rate, orients your attention toward others, and prompts you to explore and engage with the world. I call that the whoosh. Like when Darth Vader said, Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father. He told me enough. He told me you killed him. When Vader said, no, I am your father. Awe. The whoosh. And when you see a movie that causes you to whoosh. Yeah, I'm not talking about a porn movie either. That's a different kind of a whoosh. I'm talking about that top to bottom soul whoosh that happens when something outrageous occurs or something that's deeply meaningful. So, awe slows your heart rate, orients your attention toward others, and prompts you to explore and engage with the world. Awe's effects on the lacrimal glands, the tear ducts, make our eyes well up with tears that studies find are accompanied by a sense of shared identity with others. Awe is associated with a goose tingling sensation in your arms and at the back of your neck, perhaps the bodily register of Kundalini in yoga that arises in many social mammals, including humans, when responding to peril together. Awe is a basic state of mind, a primary form of consciousness. We can find it, other studies would suggest, readily. There is everyday awe to enjoy. In the grief that followed Rolf's passing, I would regularly jolt awake before dawn, gasping. My body ran hot. I ached physically. I felt sluggish, vague, or confused. This profile is familiar to many in the depths of grief and can resemble the correlates of a deep depression. I felt all less. An urgent voice called out in my mind, "Find awe." Knowing from my research that awe can reduce stress, loneliness, and physical distress and bring one a sense of expanded time, perspective, and connection, I went in search of awe. I relied on the 8 wonders of life as a roadmap and a mindset I developed with Mindful's Heather Herlock in our creation, The Awe Walk, to seek out mystery and go where one might rediscover a childlike sense of wonder. The most universal source of awe, our research finds, is in the moral beauty of others, when we are moved and touched by others' kindness, courage, and ability to overcome adversity. My brother Rolf had been my source of moral beauty. His instinctive tenderness, intolerance of bullies, and physical courage always oriented me toward the good. His passing left me adrift. I found moral beauty again in an intimate-led restorative justice program in San Quentin prison, centered on bringing about acknowledgement and forgiveness in contexts of deep harm. At the center of RJ is the talking circle, led by the facilitators serving time. In those that I participated in, the men in blue, the inmates, and I would sit in a circle and take turns speaking on topics like feelings of shame and remorse, the family member they've let down, a cellmate dying in his 50s, the grace of God, an upcoming appearance before the parole board, the latest thinking on sentencing laws. One of the facilitators of RJ in San Quentin is now my friend, Lewis Scott. In prison for life, Lewis was transformed by an idea to cultivate an awareness of the moral beauty of prisoners through restorative justice, his radio show and the San Quentin News, which he helped edit. Our need for moral beauty arises in every context, including the dehumanizing confines of prison. At the end of one day of RJ inside San Quentin, 180 of us, almost all men in blue, stood together in a quiet moment of shared attention, itself awe-inspiring, reciting the tenets of RJ, and this recital ended with, "I pledge to be an instrument of restoration, of reconciliation, and forgiveness." At forgiveness, Lewis and I broke a rule. We embraced, at a slightly oblique angle, Lewis leaning a shoulder into my chest and both of us crying tears of common humanity. That kind of embrace was the last real touch between Rolf and me. A couple of weeks before he died in his home, he'd given each of us gifts, telling stories about the place of our moral beauty in his life. My gift was a French opinel picnic knife, whose wooden handle I touch often, thinking of his hands. Rolf shuffled to his kitchen and I followed, where we embraced. For only 2 or 3 seconds, but it felt longer, lost as I was taking in through tactile content his embodiment of moral beauty. As we released, he looked to the ground and said, "We made our way." What I remember today is feeling his chest and shoulder leaning into mine, his large hands on my shoulder blades, and the feelings of awe that ensued. Today I actively practice the awe of moral beauty, contemplating a mentor or the kindness of strangers in the streets, or the symphonies of laughter, the laughter of children. In practicing awe in this way, I still feel that last touch of Rolf, and I am sent down webs of memories of Rolf's moral beauty, his humanity, his courage, his sense of fairness and justice. I'm moved by a force, his spirit, to bring a little more good to our world. And that's, of course, adapted from the book Awe by Dashiell Keltner, and it was reprinted here. And this was, of course, at mindful.org. All of these articles are in the description below. In our social media drowned world, Where is awe and our sense of wonder today? I mean, I think, a lot of it has to do too with, one of the things that still brings me awe and wonder is the form of a beautiful woman. When I was 13 and finally got to gaze upon the gorgeous naked body of my 13-year-old girlfriend, we'd go watch Star Wars at her house because she had a bootleg videotape of it, and then we'd go into a bedroom and do naughty things to each other in an innocent way. We had to work up to things. Took us till we were about 15 till we got where we needed to go, but it was 2 years of fun. But her body was awe-inspiring. The way it looked, the way it tasted, the way I touched, it was amazing. The way she responded, that was awe-inspiring. That never ceases to be awe-inspiring to me, but that has been completely removed from our modern age. The awe of being with another person, it's been completely eradicated, by our, hey, if you don't need to see awe anymore. You can just see whatever you want on the interwebs. But the awe of actually being there, of interacting, of doing something to somebody that they want you to do those things, and then they want to do those things back to you. They have things they've thought up in their own minds, and that was awe-inspiring. Wait, you want to do that? I was thinking about doing it to you. Oh, really? Well, you know what I was thinking about doing to you? There's awe and wonder there. Has that all been bled out of society? I don't know. I hope not, because that is what makes movies and fiction so amazing. Darth Plato has been a member of the channel for 54 months. That's amazing. Hey, Rob, rank Mission Impossible 8 in the series. I would put it... Dead Reckoning is my least favorite Mission Impossible movie. I would probably say 7 is my least favorite. 8 is probably, even though it's got banger action sequences, then 2. So 7, 8, 2, then 3, 1, 4, 5, and 6. I think there you go. So that's it. Let's see, what is the next article that I wanted to read? And the next article I wanted to read about awe, and this next one is interesting. I think this is interesting. You guys might not, but I do. And this one comes from Brian DeHart, and it was on Medium, and it was printed January 4th, 2025. And this sort of speaks to our present day. The quiet erosion of wonder. Wonder is one of life's most exhilarating emotions. It's the spark that ignites our curiosity, the sense of awe that makes something feel truly special, unique, and unforgettable. Yet over time, this spark often fades. What we once cherished has changed because we have. This fading is what I call the quiet erosion of wonder. It happens slowly, almost imperceptibly. The melody you once loved turns to noise. The project you poured yourself into becomes just another thing on a shelf. People you couldn't wait to see blend into the background. You stop looking. You stop feeling. Familiarity creeps in, quiet and slow, stealing the magic while you're not paying attention. Wonder isn't a fleeting gift. It's something we can nurture and rediscover by taking a closer look at how to resist its quiet erosion and find our way back to seeing the extraordinary in what we thought was ordinary. The quiet erosion of wonder is an often unnoticed phenomenon where repeated exposure to something diminishes its impact. What was once novel and exhilarating becomes ordinary, boring, and mundane. We've only become accustomed to it. This transformation, rooted in human psychology, makes us take what once sparked our curiosity, joy, or admiration for granted. When we first hear a song or see a painting or meet someone new, it stirs something inside us. Our mind lights up. Everything seems brighter, but time changes things. The more we see it, the less it moves us. The edges blur, the details fade. What was once ordinary or extraordinary becomes part of the background. It isn't boredom, but rather how the mind works. It chooses what's new and leaves the rest behind. The shine wears off, and we stop noticing what once held our attention. The curse of familiarity touches every corner of our life. Our relationships, the thrill of early romance, the excitement of a new friendship, or the admiration for a family member's quirks can fade into a routine. We stop noticing the kindness, effort, or unique qualities that once stood out. Artists, musicians, and writers often experience it. Work feels uninspired or repetitive, not because the art is lacking, but because they've spent so much time immersed in it. After countless encounters, a favorite song or painting may no longer stir the same emotions. Familiarity steals the wonder. The landscape that once took your breath away becomes just a view. You feel restless, wanting something new. You forget the richness of what's already there. The brain grows tired of what it knows too well. It tunes out the familiar and saves energy for what's new. This is called habituation. Habituation is a basic psychological and neurological process where an individual's response to a stimulus decreases with repeated exposure. Does it though? It's a form of, I won't get into that. It's a form of non-associative learning, meaning it occurs without interconnecting the stimulus with a reward or punishment. The process is fundamental to how organisms adapt to their environment, allowing them to conserve energy and focus on novel or significant stimuli. What was once bright and alive begins to fade, not because it has changed, but because we're programmed to stop caring. Over time, the details vanish. The thrill disappears. What once felt extraordinary becomes part of the background. The spark is gone, and we don't even notice when it left. This happens everywhere. In love, we stop seeing the things that made someone special. In art, the joy of a fresh idea fades into a chore. Even sunrise can lose its beauty when we see it too often. The familiar becomes invisible. We chase the new, thinking it holds the answers, but the beauty we seek is still there waiting. But this same comfort can slip into complacency. As the brain desensitizes to repeated experiences, it stops noticing the nuances and details that once made them special. The thrill of discovery fades, replaced by a sense of monotony. What once ignited excitement now feels ordinary, and we begin to take it for granted. This is the hidden cost of habituation, the loss of appreciation for what is familiar. Here's Sonny Rollins. Sonny Rollins is celebrated as one of jazz's most innovative and influential tenor saxophonists. Without a doubt, my favorite sax player of the age. Rollins' playing style was marked by a unique blend of technical mastery, emotional depth, and a restless drive for improvisational exploration. His command of melody was superb. Sonny Rollins was at the top of the jazz world in 1959, but he wasn't satisfied and believed his music was missing something. The depth he sought wasn't there. So he stepped away. No more shows, no more records. He found his place on the Williamsburg Bridge in New York. Alone, high above the city, he practiced. The bridge gave him space. No distractions, no noise, just his horn. He worked for hours daily, shaping his sound, chasing something real, searching for the flame that once ignited him. For almost 3 years, he stayed out of sight. When he returned in 1962, he had what he'd been searching for. His album, The Bridge, proved it. It wasn't just music. It was renewal. In 1968, Rollins stepped away again. This time he traveled east, studying yoga and meditation in Japan and India, living simply and searching for balance. And when he returned, his music carried the weight of those lessons. It had purpose and meaning. Rollins didn't walk away from music. Each break was a choice, a refusal to settle. He left the stage to find himself and came back stronger each time. His legacy isn't just the music he made, but the courage to pause and rediscover the wonder in it. The curse of familiarity weighs heavily on creativity. The spark that once burned bright fades. At first, our work feels alive. It is new, full of passion, excitement, and promise. But as time passes, the shine dulls. The thrill of creating turns into a routine. Overexposure creeps in. Creators spend hours with the same notes and strokes or words. What felt fresh begins to drag, and the once exciting details now feel like repetition. The wonder is gone, replaced by questions. Is this any good? Has it all been done before? Doubt grows and the passion fades. The curse hits hardest when it blinds the creator. Others may see brilliance, but the artist sees flaws and efforts stretched thin. Yes, it is subjective, but the work feels stale and objectivity subsides. Familiarity also locks the door to growth. When creators stick too long with their habits, the work stiffens. The process becomes safe and predictable. The freedom to explore disappears, and with it, the thrill of the unknown disappears. And while some artists retreat to rediscover their sense of wonder, others take a more radical approach, destroy their work. This act of destruction is not simply about anger or despair, but rather a visceral response to the quiet erosion of wonder. When the magic fades, the work feels dead. Michelangelo smashing his Pieta is a striking example. Is it Pieta? Pieta? Dissatisfied with the marble or fearing judgment, he took a hammer to Christ's limbs. The sculpture, once full of wonder, had become unbearable. Whatever Michelangelo's motivation, the destruction was brutal, but it was honest. He refused to let it stand as something less than what it could be. With his obsession for perfection, Claude Monet confronted all the same erosion of wonder late in his life. Frustrated by his water lily paintings, he slashed and destroyed at least 15 canvases. The wonder had faded for Monet, and the only way to move forward was to strip away what no longer felt extraordinary. John Balasari burned over a decade of his work. It wasn't just destruction, it was a statement. He took the ashes and made them into art. He marked the end of one chapter and the start of another. He found wonder again in the flames and redefined what art could mean. Here is a poignant question. Is the urge to destroy your art and work a creative urge? In this sense, destruction becomes a means of clearing the fog that familiarity and disillusionment can create. It's a violent yet transformative response to the slow fading of awe. By destroying their work, artists directly confront the quiet erosion of wonder, tearing down what no longer inspires to make room for what can. Art is never still. When the wonder is gone, the only way forward is to begin again. Destruction in whatever form clears the way. Interesting ideas. I kind of think that a lot of us with what we watch, for me, when things just aren't good anymore, we as imagination connoisseurs, we can recognize when something is good or whether it's been phoned in. And I think part of the great frustration of our great IPs, our great franchises, is that the people that are making them know far less about the very thing that we're watching than they do. We as imagination connoisseurs have way more knowledge, and we ask ourselves, why can't they tell good stories? Why is it if you're working, and the funny thing is we expect, like, our dream jobs would be to work on our favorite franchises. I don't necessarily think that just being a fan of something makes you at all qualified to work on it, because you still need to know how to make, if you're making Star Trek, for instance, you have to know how to make a TV show. The Star Trek of it will come later, but you first have to know how to make a great TV show. You have to know what the paradigm of a 45-minute or hour-long show, how does that work? You have to understand how to work within that paradigm before you can even approach Star Trek. I think the problem that we have now is there's lots of people that know how to make TV shows. There's very few people there that know how to make good Star Trek, which is unfortunate, because good Star Trek, just like good Doctor Who or good Star Wars, is a discipline unto itself. And just because you're a fan of Star Wars doesn't mean you're going to make a good Star Wars TV show, as evidenced by, well, take your pick. So, anyway, I will say that for me, I was lucky in that when I made True Noir this past year, I'd never done that before. I'd worked as a film editor. I worked on a lot of movies as an editor not a lot of people will ever see. There's movies I worked on that it's not because they were bad, but they're sitting on shelves. My work, you put the same amount of work in on a low budget, micro budget, or whatever movies you'd put in on a $100 million blockbuster. But one of the things that I was able to do was do the audio drama True Noir. I'd never worked on an audio drama before. I had sort of an interesting idea. It wasn't necessarily unique, but I said, why can't we mix an audio drama and just make it sound like a movie? And that came out of me putting film clips on mixtapes I would make in high school and college, 40 years ago. And I would always listen to like these 12-inch remixes because I collected 12-inch remixes. I had a lot of them. And I would make these tapes, and between these remixes, I would put clips from movies. And I used to love listening to the movie clips in my car stereo. system. I had a pretty good stereo system in my Toyotas when I was growing up, and this thing sounded good, and I would take all the movie clips came off of laser discs, and I would put one of my mixtapes had Hal Holbrook's speech from Capricorn 1 when he's explaining why they have to fake the Mars landing. You know who was at the launch today? Not the president, the vice president. The vice president and his plump wife. I mean, it's a banger speech, but it's like 5 minutes long, and it's just him talking. And I remember listening to that going, I love this, And so that's why I wanted to do an audio drama. And of course, I loved audio dramas growing up. I love the CBS Radio Mystery Theater. I love the Star Wars NPR specials. I loved Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. But I wanted it to sound like a movie, so I was able to do that. And I have to say, it was very creatively galvanizing to make something I'd never made before. It made me want to make more. I got to direct actors. I got to edit. I could do all the things that I love doing. And I basically was here by myself on this computer where you're looking at me right now. And I was just sitting here for months on end editing this. Then I got to go work with my sound design team, and interact with them. And it was fantastic. And it re-energized me. But, when it comes to our movies and television, there's been so much of it. How do you stay galvanized? How do you keep that sense of wonder? How do you keep the awe, in what you're doing? And I'll tell you, there's things coming out, like I've seen the first 10 minutes of F1. And what they've shown us, I felt awe watching it because I've never seen a TV. I loved Grand Prix and Le Mans growing up. You've got Grand Prix and Le Mans, two car racing movies that were at the time beautifully made. But seeing the way they have filmed car racing, it's never been filmed like that before. And watching the car racing, I used to love car racing as a kid. It instilled me with awe. Loved it. And I can't wait to see that movie. So they're seeing F1 in IMAX. I'm giddy, galvanized. I can't wait to see it. There's something I'm really excited about. I can look forward to. And I still think there's things out there, that things that I love, even though it looks pretty bleak lately in terms of what's getting made and why things are getting made, but there's still things that are getting made that have the ability to excite me. I'm excited, even though I've read the script, I'm excited about Zach Cregger's Weapons. I love my horror. Bring her back. Seeing something like The Substance. What a hoot. I thought I'd seen everything, but there's still stuff being made by people that really care, that have the ability to instill illicit feelings of awe and wonder. And that's pretty good, despite the rest of the world going to hell in a handbasket. It's nice to be able to feel awe and wonder, and to hope that it continues to go on. I have one final article that I wanted to read, and it is, this one comes to us from hbr.org. Before I read it, Stephen Langford says, I'm sorry about your pre-order getting canceled. I was looking forward to you smiling and showing off the 007 collection on Robservations like it was the Holy Grail. Don't you worry, Stephen. Don't you worry. I will not be undaunted. And I really like those covers too. So don't worry. I will be getting that set. As a Bond fan, I can't not. But I don't know if you've been watching me building my 1/8 scale Wet Nelly from The Spy Who Loved Me. Talk about instilling awe. I put clips of it or pictures of it on Instagram, and it's pretty neat. So anyway, this article comes from HBR Psychology, and it's written by David P. Fessel and Karen Ravitch, and it was published on August 25th, 2021. And this is the climax of this 4-part extravaganza. And this is not the right article. I hit the wrong one. Let me get to the right one. Here's the right one. And the article is Why You Need to Protect Your Sense of Wonder, Especially Now. We may be slowly, this, by the way, I should start with this. As the pandemic era, actually, you know what? I need a little drink. By the way, they do not sponsor this channel, but and it's expensive. But there's a product called Water Drop. It's a German company, and they make these little cubes. They have actually not a whole lot of nutritional value, but they've got like electrolytes in them. And these cubes, there's no sugar or anything, and they're not. There's no carbonation in them, but you drop them into water, and they have flavored, different kinds of fruit flavors and stuff. But this is their cola flavored, and I put 2 of their little cubes in each, because I probably drink about 8 of these mason jars a day of water. But these cubes, man, this water drop stuff, I know it's expensive, but man, it doesn't have that burn, that chemical burn that Diet Coke does, and I love that burn. But soda's terrible for you. But these cubes, man, the only thing is they're expensive. There's like a box of 12 is like, I don't know, a 10 or I don't. It's like 12. Each one's like $1. So when I put 2 cubes, it's like $2. But it's like going to 7-Eleven. They're really good. I mean, this cola, it has it's hard to explain, a naturally sweet taste, but it smells like cola. It's really good. It's really good. See, sense of wonder. I can find awe and wonder, and even when you put these little cubes in to watch them fizz out, it's just, hey, it's a simple thing, but it's the simple pleasures, man. I'm telling you. Anyway, so let's start. So this was written again right after the pandemic, so August 25th, 2021. We may be slowly returning to our offices more or less, but the strains of the pandemic are hardly over. As we enter a transitional stage after a year of trauma and strain, more than ever we need ways to refresh our energies, calm our anxieties, and nurse our well-being, just like today. One potentially powerful intervention is rarely talked about in the workplace: the cultivation and experiences of awe. Like gratitude and curiosity, awe can leave us feeling inspired and energized. It's another tool in your toolkit, and it's now attracting increased attention due to more rigorous research. As a physician and a psychologist, we have facilitated hundreds of resilience and well-being workshops both before and during COVID for the military, physicians, educators, law enforcement, and in the business world. Helping participants to explore, experience, and recall moments of awe is one of the key scientifically supported strategies we engage in during our workshops, and it defines awe as, quote, the wonder we feel when we encounter something powerful that we can't easily explain. Often the things which bring us awe have an element of vastness and complexity. Think of a starry night sky, an act of great kindness, or the beauty of something small and intricate. During your workday, the colors of the leaves outside your office or an act of sacrifice by a colleague could prompt a similar feeling, especially if you're attuned to it. In the United States and China especially, experiences of awe are frequently related to the virtuous behavior of others, an act of dedication, skill, or courage. Captivating experiences of awe is especially important and helpful now as we renew our energy and make plans for a more hopeful future. That's because beyond physical effects like tingling and goosebumps and lowered heart rates under stress, awe also affects us emotionally. One experimental group, when asked to draw pictures of themselves, literally drew themselves smaller in size after having an awe experience. Such an effect has been termed unselfing. This shift has big benefits. As you tap into something larger and your sense of self shrinks, so too do your mental chatter and your worries. At the same time, your desire to connect with and help others increases. People who experience awe also report higher levels of overall life satisfaction and well-being. Let's look more closely at the effects on stress and resilience. Experiences of awe are associated with lower levels of reported stress, and recent experimental research suggests that this may be a causal relationship, that awe can actively help reduce stress. Recent research using fMRI has also shown that experiences of awe, such as us watching awe-inspiring videos, compared to neutral or pleasant videos, decreases activity in the brain's default mode network, which is associated with self-focus and rumination. The result is decreased mental chatter. awe's benefits extend beyond stress relief, however. Research has shown that experiencing something bigger than us helps us transcend our frame of reference by expanding our mental models and stimulating new ways of thinking. This can increase creativity and innovation and facilitate scientific thinking and ethical decision-making. It also helps us build relationships. Though feeling awe frequently happens in solitude, it draws us out of ourselves and toward others and inspires pro-social behavior like generosity and compassion. Some scientists theorize that it has evolved to aid group cohesion and provide survival advantages. For work groups, experiences of awe can lead to increased collaboration, team building, and social connection. There are many ways you can cultivate experiences of awe during the course of your workday. A simple and powerful way to experience awe if you can step away from your desk is to take an awe walk. Take 20 minutes to wander and be curious and observe the everyday beauty around you, even in a familiar place like your yard or your neighborhood. In our workshops, this instruction helps people to notice others, as well as places and things they might typically rush past. A bee flitting from flower to flower, for example. Afterwards, our participants report feeling inspired, calmer, and better able to focus. Even better, take an awe-seeking walk in a natural landscape. Research shows that walks in nature, compared to urban environments, have a greater positive effect on our mood and well-being. Nature is an immersive experience of growth and resilience, and it can be a powerful source of wonder and awe. Nature's rhythms also remind us that we are part of the natural world, and we too are enduring. A CEO of a Michigan technology company, one of us, David, has collaborated with schedules frequent bike rides through a landscape of trees and water. Doing so, he feels a part of something larger than himself, as well as to boost his energy and resilience. If you can't step away from your desk, take advantage of the wonders of your fingertips on the web. Several studies have shown that videos can stimulate awe. Perhaps you're inspired by award-winning documentaries such as Free Solo or Planet Earth or the recent Oscar winner, My Octopus Teacher. Let Amanda Gorman's The Hill We Climb give you goosebumps. The harmony and complexity of music can also elevate and inspire awe. Create your own personal awe playlist of videos or music, and when you're feeling stuck, spend a few minutes being drawn into what you're seeing and hearing. You can also invite moments of awe by asking the simple question, "What's beautiful here?" Another option is to turn into news sites that spread good news, acts of kindness, generosity, or perseverance. Keep a file on your computer of stories of the goodness, benevolence, and decency of the human race. Tap it when you're feeling overwhelmed or depleted and want to be elevated. A simple story of one person making a difference can inspire others around the world. And if I can just stop for a moment and talk about what frequently instilled awe in me personally, were movies. You know, I recently acquired the theatrical version, I've talked about this before, of Amadeus. Only the director's cut was available for a very long time, and a 4K restored version of Amadeus came out on disc. And I've always loved Amadeus. I wrote a review of it in my high school newspaper and thought it was the best movie of the year. And before it won the Oscar, I knew it was going to win Best Picture. And I know Amadeus is an adaptation of Peter Shaffer's play, but that is a movie that is about awe. It is about a man who recognizes the awe in someone else, and it drives him pretty nutty because he knows he sees it in a different way. But when you're watching the movie, we, as the audience, feel the same awe in the power of Mozart as Salieri feels. And I find that movie, even though it sort of ends tragically, the movie itself, the craft of movie making in that movie is awe-inspiring. You know, another movie that I turn to that always makes me feel awe is The Right Stuff, which is about the beginning of the American space program. It's about the Mercury 7 astronauts. It's based on a book by Tom Wolfe. And the thing about The Right Stuff, if you haven't seen The Right Stuff, a lot of people, it surprises me. It's funny because The Right Stuff was not a big hit in the theater. It was made by the Ladd Company, the same company who made Blade Runner the year before. It's 3 hours and 15 minutes long, but it's the fastest 3 hours and 15 minutes you'll ever experience. But to me, the first time I saw everything about that movie, everything about The Right Stuff, because what's really interesting about The Right Stuff is it is not this reverential look at history. It is that, but it's also hilarious. You know, it sometimes it borders on a slapstick comedy. The tone, it has wildly divergent tone in it. And the filmmaking is very audacious. And if you've never seen The Right Stuff, hopefully why it's not out in 4K and remixed in Dolby Atmos, I don't know. But because it had one banger of a soundtrack. And it's the discs, I mean, I've owned it on Laserdisc, I've owned it on DVD, I've owned it on Blu-ray. I hope to get the 4K, but it's one of my favorite movies. And it is a movie that's about awe. And, you know, it again, if you've never seen The Right Stuff, what's wrong with you, first of all? I don't know where to get it. I don't know if it's streaming anywhere, but you should. Because if you're at all interested in magnificent men and their flying machines, the Right Stuff, it's also gear porn too. I mean, you know, Glamorous Glynis, the X-1, the first plane that broke the sound barrier. It's just, if you haven't seen The Right Stuff, you got to see The Right Stuff, because it is a movie that I watch. It frequently, it instills me with awe. Not only is it entertaining, but when they do these incredible things, it's not just the test pilots, but it's also the men that make the machines too. And the conflict between the two. If you haven't seen The Right, it's one of my favorite. It's in the top 5 favorite movies of all time. I mean, it really is. It's like The Godfather. The Godfather and The Right Stuff are 2 movies. It doesn't matter how many times I've ever seen. I could see those movies 100 times, and every time I put it on, it's like watching the beginning. Well, it's like watching the movie all over again. And part of it is the soundtrack. Bill Conti did the score for The Right Stuff. And it's got one of the great themes of all time. So not to put too fine a point on it, if you haven't seen The Right Stuff, that's where I go to for awe is movies. And The Right Stuff is definitely one of them. And you don't have to have Lawrence of Arabia to have it instill awe in you. But I mean, it helps. But The Right Stuff, if you haven't seen The Right Stuff, go watch it and report back, because it is one of the great times I've ever had. And you know, when I went and saw it in the theater, I saw it at the Factoria Cinemas. I saw the first show, and there was nobody in the theater. And I was kind of depressed about it. I think that I took the day off. I think I was supposed to be in college. I don't remember the exact day it opened. No, I wasn't in college. I was in high school, because it was 83. I was thinking 9.5 weeks, because I saw it 9.5 weeks in the same theater. You know where my mind's at. There's awe in 9.5 weeks too, but it's a different kind of awe. No, but that was 83. Right Stuff's 83. Anyway, back to this article. That was an interlude for you. As far as if you need a little awe in your life. If you're a manager, you can leverage the power of awe to help your team with its energy and resilience and provide empathy and emotional support. Encourage your team members to share their awe playlists and create opportunities to share awe by starting meetings with questions like, what took your breath away this week? Or what made you glad you're on this planet? Contribute your own stories too and share their impact on you. In the work of one of us, Karen, has done with the Oklahoma City Thunder, leaders asked teams to bring personal photos that sparked awe and gratitude. At a team meeting, the photos were projected and each person spoke about their photo and their experience. Meanwhile, the health system where David works offers voluntary noontime resilience webinars featuring awe. Individuals from disparate departments who've never met come together and share stories of awe in small group Zooms. The positive energy after each of these events is evident and elevating. Managers should watch out for several potential missteps when creating awe experiences for their teams, however. First, what stimulates awe in one person can stimulate feelings of threat or danger in another. If someone with a fear of heights is forced to look at a vertiginous view, for example, know your team well enough to understand where to draw the line. Secondly, as you encourage your teams to experience awe, keep in mind that it's an addition and not a subtraction. Adding experiences of awe does not eliminate grief or anxiety, nor does it mitigate the need for teams to talk openly about the challenges they face and the support they need from leadership. It's normal and healthy to experience a full range of emotions, especially in highly challenging times. It's imperative that managers offer as much compassion and understanding as they can muster. Finally, don't mistake intimidation for awe. We're not talking about developing a cult of power around yourself as a leader. A very different approach which can do more harm than good. We spend much of our time at work trying to stake our claim and make our voices heard. It can feel counterintuitive to engage in something that might stimulate feelings of smallness, but doing so through a positive experience of awe can, in the end, bring us that sense of grounding we're searching for, along with a multitude of benefits, such as energy, inspiration, and resilience for ourselves and our teams. So that's the end of that. That's all the articles I wanted to read tonight about awe. And if you're not bored to tears and you're still here with me, I mean, for me, movies were the thing that I always turned to give me awe and wonder, to instill that sense into me. And the thing is, we don't get a lot of those movies anymore, because I think to have a true sense of awe and wonder, there has to be something truthful in them, something that we can connect to. Like, you know, I find the helicopter attack on the beach in Apocalypse Now to be full of awe and wonder. Not just the scene itself, but when I watch that scene, I think about what it took to shoot it. Every single shot and how long it took to edit. So that sequence in Apocalypse Now, the filmmaking itself becomes awe-inspiring to me. And I kind of felt that way in the first 10 minutes of F1. You know, when I see the sense of filmmaking, again, seeing Star Wars for the first time, awe. You know, I watched, one of the reasons I wanted to do this show and talk about awe and wonder is I watched a channel today. I occasionally flip by this YouTube channel, Echo Chamberlain, and there was a piece on that today, on this, and I watched it and I was like, wow, I really like this piece, and it made me want to talk about that. And I think that the one thing about Superman is that part of the reason that I'm looking forward to it is it put a smile on my face. A smile of, not the kind of smile that Zack Snyder's Man of Steel did. Because Man of Steel, if you watch especially the first trailers and stuff, with Hans Zimmer's score, I mean, there was a sense of awe and wonder. Truly, there was a sense of awe and wonder in a lot of what Zack Snyder shoots. But it's a different case with James Gunn's Superman. There's awe and wonder and whimsy as well, which is also something I like to experience. And I can't wait to see it. Can't wait to see it. Stephen Langford goes on to say, I'm not big on steelbooks, but that Dragon Ball Super Steelbook Collector's Edition on Blu-ray being on sale on Amazon was too good to pass up. Also, I want the Netflix film The Killer on 4K. I do too, because it's David Fincher. Thanks, Rob. Well, Stephen, I'm right there with you. You know, I like things look better on disc than they look on streaming. The Game of Thrones episode, The Long Night, is case in point. But in terms of when I think about awe and wonder in terms of the movies, part of the problem now is that there's so few things that we don't know what we're going to get. You know, and I go back to that time when we went to New Line Cinema, man, and here we were, our little DVD team. Hey, we were awarded, we're going to do the extended version of Lord of the Rings, and we're going to be doing all the special features. We hadn't seen any of it. They'd shown the 20 minutes at Cannes, and we're going to start on this. We're going to spend the next 3 years of our lives working on this movie, and they bring our little team. There's like 20 of us, all the people that are going to be working on the special features, and we go into this little room right off Beverly Boulevard. You know, around the corner where New Line's offices were. And they showed us 20 minutes. A lot of it was the Mines of Moria. And it was interesting because sitting there and watching, this is in the summer of 2001. It was after Cannes, so I don't know if it was June. I don't remember. June, July of 2001. The theatrical version came out Christmas, holidays of 2000. Maybe it was November. I don't remember when it came out, but we're watching these 20 minutes, and there are a few times in my life where I felt as much awe. Though we had no, there's, if you go back and you watch there's a first like announcement trailer for Lord of the Rings, and it talks about they're doing all 3 movies. And you watch that trailer, you know how a good trailer with the music and the image, a trailer can make you feel awe and wonder. A good trailer can do that. And there was that trailer, and then they had the one shot they kept showing of the Fellowship going over the top of the mountain. Come on, you watch that and you're like, I gotta see that. We were sitting in the theater watching these 20 minutes of Lord of the Rings, and nobody had seen it other than the people that were at Cannes, and the people that I guess New Line was showing it to, like us. And we were all sitting in that theater, and we hoped it would be good. We're like, well, we hope it's good because we're going to be working on it. Our boss, Michael Pellerin, and we're all watching this going, I think he'd seen it already. But I remember feeling the whole Mines of Moria sequence. I was like, holy shit. Like, you'd never seen anything like that before. And that was what, I'm like, fuck, man, this is why I'm doing this. This is why I might have directed a movie. My movie had come out just 2 years before, Free Enterprise, and that was an amazing experience. But now I'm working on Lord of the Rings doing special features, and I know it's only doing special features, but my problem is people have always wondered, why didn't you, I would have liked to have kept directing, but you got to keep working. I had gotten married, and I'm like, fuck, man, I'm working on Lord of the Rings. Why wouldn't I want to? And it was 3 movies all at once, but to see that first 20 minutes, seeing that first 20 minutes, being in that room, I mean, it was like like crack cocaine watching that 20 minutes, going, holy shit, we get to work on this for the next. I get to go to New Zealand, yay! I mean, it was incredible, and that's why I love movies all the time, because movies have always instilled that sense of awe and wonder. War of the Worlds, Planet of the Apes, Twilight Zone. Major Chai Chai says, in The Longest Day, there's an overhead camera pan of the French forces in Oysterham that always fills me with awe. Well, see, that's great, because it's a combination of both things, which is amazing. I have more letters to read, Major Chai Chai. I know that don't think I've forgotten. But I want to thank everybody for, I've been going on for 2 hours, but, in this day and age where it seems like the world has forgotten how to feel a sense of awe and wonder and whimsy. I mean, there's a big military parade in Washington, D.C. tomorrow, and whatever you feel about it, it feels forced. I mean, normally I think a big parade, a military parade, like, the May Day parades or whatever they would have in the Soviet Union, or you'd watch, and they paraded all the armor that they had out. There were times, there were pictures of those. Zack Snyder does a good job of depicting it in Watchmen. I don't know if tomorrow's military parade is going to fill anybody with a sense of awe and wonder, more like a sense of dread. But maybe some people won't feel that way. I don't know. But in this day and age where awe is fleeting in our everyday lives, where it seems like it has been bled out of all of us, I think it's worth going on a quest, a personal quest, to discover your own sense or rediscover your own sense of awe and wonder. As a matter of fact, I'll put it to all of you. Make it a task. It's a challenge. I'm offering it all to you. I'm challenging you all to go find your sense of awe and wonder, and come back and we'll do a show. And if you want, send me in the information's right there. Write me a letter. Put in the heading, for observations, awe and wonder, or sense of wonder, in the subject heading. And I want all of you to take this challenge, and don't tell me like a movie that you saw when you were a little kid that filled you with a sense of awe. This is a challenge. This is a challenge now. It's a new thing. I want you to go out now and find and tell me a tale of something that instilled a sense of awe and wonder into you, starting now. And I'll read them on the air. I'll do a show. I'll do a show that is only your responses to what fills you. And it can be anything. There's no wrong answer. All I would ask is you make it honest. Don't make it up. And be raw. And tell me a real story that I'm going to, and make sure I'm going to read it aloud. But go find a sense of awe and wonder. Find something and you know what? You might not even know it's going to hit you. It might just be something that'll happen that you're totally unexpected. It's going to be unexpected. It just happens to you in the next week or two. And if you find something that instills you with a sense of awe and wonder, I want to hear about it. And I'll read it on the show. And so there are your marching orders. You don't have to march in a parade down whatever avenue they're marching down tomorrow, but, march to the beat of your own drum. Tell me about your sense of awe. And on that note, I'm going to end this show. First of all, I want to thank all of you for watching. I hope you get your Superman tickets. I think that movie will instill us all with a sense of awe and wonder and whimsy too. And look, I'm looking forward to Jurassic Park Rebirth. I'm looking forward to Fantastic Four First Steps. I'm looking forward to F1. I'm looking forward to Weapons. I'm looking forward to seeing The Long Walk. There's a lot coming out I can't wait to see. But I want to thank all of you for supporting this channel via super chats and tips and memberships and all that. We're not going to have a member call tomorrow. I totally forgot about that, and I have a situation I'm dealing with. I was supposed to be gone this upcoming weekend, but I don't know if that's going to happen because something that happened today. I have to figure that one out. But on that note, I want to thank my moderating staff, Tom Jr. Jackson, who's been traveling, and of course Darth Plato and all of you. And yeah, stay safe. We live in really, really crazy times, and here's hoping that the war between Iran and Israel ends swiftly and with a resolution that we can all be happy about. And on that note, remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. And maybe that person you haven't met is going to tell you a story that fills you with awe and wonder. And I want to hear about it.